Hi, I'm Maggie,
Hi, I'm Grace, and this is
a very bookish podcast.
Hey guys, welcome back to a very bookish podcast. Today is episode 79, and today I have a special author guest. This is an author I actually have met. I have received one of her arcs, and she has the most gorgeous hair out of any author I've met before. And today we have Gina L Maxwell. How are you today, Gina?
Hey, Maggie, thanks for the great intro.
I'm known for my intros, is what I like to say.
I can see why. If you were going to say that about my hair, I probably would have worn it down. Now they're like, I don't believe her.
As a fellow girl who loves to dye my hair, I love all your hair colors. I used to have purple hair. I'm thinking about going back to purple because it's red right now, but it's like a darker red. And I'm like, maybe I should do
purple.
Yeah. I used to have bright pink hair as well, or bright blue hair. But I also kind of want to go green because I've never gone green. So cool. It's kind of up in the air. So I have 1 year before I graduate and have to go into the professional world. So I'm like,
live it up.
Yeah, just get it done now. I did that freshman and sophomore year. It's time to bring it back for senior year. Well, Gina, for our guests, our listeners who don't know who you are, would you like to give us a little background on who you are and your publishing history?
Okay, so my name is Gina L Maxwell. I write mostly contemporary so-fi romance, and now I'm getting back into my original genre pre-publishing days, which is fantasy and paranormal. All of my books are on the steamy side, although I have learned with this recent release that in reading all of the reviews, I have always thought that I was on the steamier end of the scale, 5 chili peppers, and some people are like 2.5 chili peppers, and I'm like, what else do they read? I need to know what you guys are considering 5, because I need to up my game. Apparently, some people are still rating me at 4 and 5s, and I'm like, okay, that tracks. But then some people are like 2, 3, and I'm thinking, what is it that you guys are reading? Because I need to know. Let a girl in on the secret. So I have learned that there is a definite wide variety of steamy scales. And now I feel like, can I even say that anymore? I don't know. People might call me a liar. They're like, she's not steamy. I don't know. It's kind of my brand. I've always been known as a very steamy, explicit writer, but now I'm questioning all of my past decisions. Anyway, so I've been publishing for 10 years. I've been writing for 13. I started writing in 2009 as another way of enjoying the romance books that I read. I was not one of those authors who, from the time she was little, was like, I'm going to write books, I'm going to write stories, I'm going to be an author. It wasn't one of those options at the job fair, right? You're in high school. It's not like author. Oh, this is a thing you can do. I never even considered it. It seemed like that was something that other people did. Other people became authors. I was good at writing stories and stuff for English class, but it never crossed my mind that could be an actual career. So I did not go to school for it. I actually went to college on a scholarship for musical theater and dance. After the second year, I was like, is it worth paying $15,000 a year just to have a lot of fun? Probably not. So I got out after my sophomore year and just became, for 10 years, I was basically an executive assistant. That's what I did. I was in the corporate world where I did not belong. I have a hard time following rules and being professional, all of those things. But I was really good at the job. But yeah, I couldn't toe the line as far as professionalism was concerned. Anywho, so I started writing. I was inspired by a Gina Showalter book. You can't tell, but these are all Gina Showalter books right here. I've got all of her books that I've in her Lords of the Underworld series and a few in her other series. Anyway, after reading one of her books, I was like, God, I am so invested in these fictional characters, and they don't even exist. Like, they can't exist. They're not, I mean, it's paranormal to begin with. Like, it's impossible, and they feel so real to me. And that was just, it was like awe-inspiring, you know? And I thought, what a talent that is, to be able to inspire that in others. And I thought, well, what two characters would I put together if I was going to write a book? And I came up with this turned vampire. He was college age, and his best friend, who he was, you know, in unrequited love with, she was a half angel, and he didn't knew it. And yeah, so like, and I just started thinking about, okay, well, how do they know each other? Where did they meet? How did, you know, what's their relationship like? What's going on? What is keeping them apart? All this stuff. And the more I thought about it, the more I loved it. And so I decided, oh, I'm just going to write it down for myself, right? Maybe a few friends will read it. Who knows? But the more I started writing, the more I fell in love with the story. And I decided, well, maybe I should try to get it published. What's the worst that can happen? They say no, big deal. I still wrote a book for me and my friends, you know, whatever. So I started writing, and I Googled how to write fiction well. That was my first step.
Google is your best friend.
So true. And that is literally when, you know, because authors often get questions from aspiring writers, like, how did you get into the business and whatever? I'm like, Google. And like, there's so much information out there, you know, between articles and blog posts and specifics, you know, writing design sites to books. Like, there's nothing that you can't learn if you just Google it, right? So I Googled how to write fiction well, and I taught myself with all of the articles and the blog posts and I started my own blog, because back then blogging was very big still.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There was a whole writing blogging community, and, you know, you start to like meet people that way and network. And then when I wrote the book and I thought I was ready to, you know, start querying, how to query for an agent, or how to publish, you know, submit to a publishing house. And I learned that. I was rejected 30 times. I wrote the same book 14 times, had hundreds of revisions, and 3 different critique partners helping me within 3 years. And then I was rejected 30 times. And then finally I had revised it enough and made it better enough that I was given a contract in March of 2012 by Untitled Publishing.
Wow.
Trilogy for all 3 books. So I was over the moon. Obviously, like, my dreams of being published were coming true. This is the book of my heart. Like, I just loved it so much. And then I had a conversation with my publisher. Like, we had just moved from Pittsburgh to San Antonio. So I was on unemployment, and I said, you know, this is great, but because we were planning on putting it in the stores, for those who don't know how publishing works, when you turn in a book to that printer, it's usually, unless it's special circumstances, which is what we had with The Dark King, usually it is a year to a year and a half before it is on shelves. So there was going to be a long time, and then you don't get paid royalties for like 3, usually 6 months after that, right? So I said, this is really great, thank you so much, but in a couple of months my unemployment is going to run out, and I'm going to need to get a real, you know, not a real job, but like a full-time job. And
Mm-hmm.
she said, no, I don't want you to do that. I want you to be a full-time writer. And I said, well, don't we all? Right? Like,
in this economy, do you
right.
want me to be a full-time writer in this economy?
Right. Yeah, I was like, people want it. So she's like, well, what we'll do to bring you in some money is you can just write a quick category romance, and we'll release it digitally. And that will bring you in some money. I said, awesome. What's a category romance? Because I'd never read them before. And she's like, you know, it's the ones with all the tropes. I said, perfect. What's a trope? I was like little baby new author. I had no idea. I'd never heard the word trope before. I didn't know. I'd never read category romance. And so she very kindly explained it, gave me some examples of people to read or books to read. So then I wrote Seducing Cinderella in 2 months, and we released it in July of that year of 2012. And that was supposed to be my digital release that brought in a little bit of money so that, you know, I would be able to then focus on writing Desires of the Soul is what it was called, or editing it and getting it ready for publication. And unbeknownst to our plans, like we had no idea it would do this, but Seducing Cinderella ended up hitting the lists, USA Today and New York Times, both within 4 weeks of its release.
Wow.
Yeah, it just went boom. And we were kind of like, well, what the what? Obviously super excited and very, very happy. But yeah, it climbed number 9 on the New York Times list, and I think 33 on USA Today. And it was the little book that could, and it just like gangbusters. And so then it was like, okay, well, now you have to write the next book in the series. And I'm like, I'm sorry, what now? So that's how I accidentally became a contemporary romance author, because I was supposed to be a paranormal romance author. And then that's how my contemporary career took off, and that's just who I became. And I've loved it. I love contemporary romance, but it was so funny because when I was writing Seducing Cinderella, right, and this is like my first category romance experience, and I said to her, this is after 3 years of writing this big, huge paranormal plot with like a prophecy, and the world is coming to an end, and like things are like just, you know, it's just dire and apocalyptic. And I was like, what do these people do all day? Just sit around and talk to each other? Like they have no one to save. There's no imminent threats coming for them. She's like, yeah, they just like get to know each other and fall in love. I'm like, this is bullshit.
It's like y'all live a boring life, but I'm gonna make my bag off of it.
Actually, after it hit, I was like, okay, yeah, sure, no problem. We'll just talk and get to know each other. I can write books like that, no problem. So yeah.
That's wow. So you've had so after you Seducing Cinderella came out, you wrote the next book for that. And then did you continue to write paranormal romance, or was that kind of brushed under the rug until, because would you consider The Dark King paranormal? Because I would consider it like fantasy paranormal, more
right.
Fantasy.
Yeah, The Dark King is urban fantasy technically.
Yeah.
So because it's set in our world, and it's in a story world, which is also how Desires of the Soul was as well. It was set in Chicago. So not high fantasy or anything, but I don't know if I have the correct delineations, but I consider like vampires, shifters, witches, that's all paranormal. Fae, and elves and dwarves and druids and stuff like that's all fantasy. I don't know, that's how I delineate it in my mind, but
yeah.
Fae.
You know, I honestly, when it comes to all that, I'm like, that's too much for my brain to process. I got ADHD. I'm focusing on like 120 other things. I'm not going to differentiate. Yeah, I'm not going to differentiate between paranormal and fantasy. It's got dragons or it's got vampires. That's all I need.
Right, exactly, right? Yeah, so it's considered, I think, urban fantasy, but some people have been calling it paranormal, so I think it's all in just what you consider it to be. But no, I didn't write any fantasy, paranormal, nothing. It all got pushed to the back burner because everybody now knew me as a contemporary romance author, and because they wanted that series written, like the next characters, you know, like, okay, now we want Vanessa and Jax's story, now we want so-and-so's story. And so that's how, you know, and from my publisher's standpoint, now you're put into a box, right? Like, okay, this is your box and this is where you stay. And so it's very hard to break out of those boxes. I'm very fortunate in the fact that my publisher came to me with this idea for The Dark King, and was like, you know, I think that you would be the best voice for this. And so that's how I was able to get back into that fantasy / paranormal genre. So I'm really happy about that.
I mean, I'm happy too. I got the book and I got to read it, and then I got introduced to you. Like, this was the best avenue for me, because when I got that box from Entangled, and it was like, there's a necklace. I think I have.
Isn't it beautiful?
I keep the necklace right by my desk. It's like in like this nice case, and it's like, obviously it's a faux, but it's supposed to be like a diamond necklace. I was like, damn. And my friend, it was good.
Putting that in there. So when I opened my box, I was like, woo!
Yeah.
I'm officiating a wedding this week and I'm going to wear it. So
yeah, because when I got the box, I was like, I've never heard of this author. Like, what is this? And I'm reading the back, and my friend is standing there, and I'm reading it aloud in my apartment. And I think I told you the story where I'm reading it aloud, and we're like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, he what? And then we're like yelling and screaming about this book. And then we turn, and my apartment juts up to like another person's apartments. We can see through each other's windows. And I had my windows wide open, and we turn and we look, and my neighbor is like staring at us, looking at us like, are you guys okay? Because we're just standing in my kitchen, like screaming as I'm reading a book, and he's just like gaming on his thingy, and he looks over, he's just like, has this look of like, are you all okay? Like, I need to call 911 on you? Because it's like, we're screaming over a what is the back of the book called? I forgot what these are called.
The blurb or the back cover copy.
Yeah, the blurb on the back, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And I started reading it that night. I finished this book so fast. I think this is one of the last books that I fully read was this book, because I've just been so busy. And when I tell you, I annotated the crap out of this book because I loved it so much. Chef's kiss. And then I got to see you at a Polygon, and I was like,
I know, that was so exciting.
You have, and I was like, she has more books. And I was like, she has a Peter Pan retelling book. That's all the rage right now, is like the Peter Pan retellings. And I was like, snatched it. I was like, I have to get my hands on it. You were like selling out, and I was like, give me it.
Totally sold out at that conference. That was amazing.
I was so excited to see you, and I loved how I literally like looked at you, and you looked at me, and you were like, oh. It's like, I was like, this is why I do this, and I loved it. I
love your TikToks. It made me laugh so hard. The one about your therapist. Oh my God, I died.
That's actually like, so I tell my therapist a lot about like the books I read, and she's like, Maggie, this is concerning, because I talk to her about like my dark romance, like my stalker ones, and then I tell her about this one, and she's like, Maggie, why do you like guys kidnapping characters? And I was like, they're not kidnapping per se. And she's like, we need to look into this further, see what kind of daddy issues you have. So I was very excited. And then I also found out that you have, for our audio and visual listeners, she also has Lost and Found, which is that Peter Pan retelling, and then Lost in Darkness, which is a Hook. And who's the other character?
Wonderland.
Yeah. Yeah. And I was like, that's cute. That's cute. So
yeah, I came up with mine in Pan released in January of 2019, and then Hook released in, well, they used to be called Pan and Hook, and so I have a hard time not still finding, but back in October of that same year. So and that was when Peter Pan retellings really weren't out there, except for in a lot of like the YA genre. There were a ton of them, but they were all still fantasy based. Whereas, mine is contemporary reimagining. So it's, I set it in the fictional town of Neverland, North Carolina. So it's on a coastal town in North Carolina. London, North Carolina is obviously butted up right next to Neverland. And I wanted to explore what happens when Peter and the Lost Boys and Tinkerbell And then I also included Hook, Smee, and Starkey as the three pirates. What happens if they are all orphans in this Lost Boys school, or school for lost boys, and they grow up under a man who owns the orphanage, who is not nice to them.
Yeah.
He's kind of neglectful and abusive, and so they grow up on that side of the tracks, whereas Wendy and her brothers, the Darlings, grew up in the affluent neighborhood of London. And when they meet and stuff like that. So I wrote it in dual timelines because I wanted to explore how they met when they were children, and all of those important scenes that kind of created who they were, and watch their love story. Because Peter Pan, I always loved it as a kid, but I hated that Peter Pan and Wendy never got together. Like, that to me was just wrong on so many levels.
We were robbed. We were robbed.
So I was like, I'm gonna fix that. We're gonna fix that. So I gave them a second chance romance, because we get to see them fall in love when they're young, and then she goes away and comes back 10 years later, and so we get to see that. And so it's dual timelines, but the scenes are interspersed, so it's not like part one, part two kind of a thing. But my favorite part of writing that book was taking all of those little iconic moments in Peter Pan that everybody knows, whether you're familiar with it or not. Like when he asks Wendy for a kiss and she gives him a thimble in the original story. Well, in the modern times, a 12-year-old girl isn't going to have an actual thimble nearby, right? She's not sitting there learning how to sew. So what I did was, she reaches into her nightstand drawer and she pulls out the thimble Monopoly piece. It's just like one of those stray things, it's the game piece that's in her nightstand. And so I loved taking those fantastical moments and twisting them to make them fit into our world. But yeah, and then Hook, his story, he's my favorite character I've written of all time.
I'm so excited to read his book. I'm like so excited. I was shipping him with other characters though, and I know he doesn't end up with the character that I wanted him to end up with, which kind of makes me mad, but also then I get that character in another book, so I'm excited. But I'm just like, he's tall, dark, and handsome, and I'm like, that is my type.
Yeah. And tortured and broody, and he's my ultimate. He's the only character I've ever dedicated a book to. So I dedicated his book to him. And I don't think I will ever write a character as much as I love as him. So I've never cried while writing, except with that book.
Okay, now I'm going to cry during the book.
But I put you all back together. It's just like little, but yeah, it's like grumpy sunshine, opposites attract, cop versus criminal. I just love that book so much.
Yeah, for our listeners, I am reading Lost and Found. It's continuously reading. Don't come for me. I have not finished it yet. I am a busy bee. But the book of hers that I have finished is The Dark King, which is mostly why you're here, is because it just released. And I got this back in July. July is when I got this. I ate this up. I was like, and then I found out there was a second book, and I was like, it's like, is it a standalone series of standalones?
Yeah.
Okay. I was kind of sad about that.
Each brother gets a book, but like there's an overarching plot.
Yeah. So I was, I haven't read a lot of fantasy kind of like fae romance in a while. So this was a good introduction back into it. And when you say like, at least on the back for us, it says fans of Katie Robert and Scarlett St. Clair will devour this book. I was like, perfect. It's literally like fae meets 50 Shades of Grey. And I was like, oh, you caught me there. And I was like, I will say I gave this like 1.5 spices for me.
Okay, you and I need to talk afterwards, and I need to know what 5 stars, 5 spicy books you are, because I've got to figure out what I am doing wrong.
My spice rating is a little different. So I rate on like how many people are involved, if toys are involved, how many toys are involved, how long the scene is. So my detail of spice is like, you gotta hit into the categories. So if you want to write a reverse harem for me,
I would love to. Yeah.
I am a reverse harem fiend. I don't know if you can see, but I have the Tate James books right here.
Yeah.
I love me a good reverse harem. So
I've got lots of those in my Kindle library as well.
Yeah, I'm a very dark romance reader. That is like my cup of tea. But can we kind of hear the backstory of how the Dark King came to be, and like your writing process and how long it actually took you to write this?
Ooh. So this happened where I was planning on, I had my whole year planned out for 2022. I knew what I was writing when. I had like this big long plan. Tink's book, which is book 3 in the Lost Boys novels, was planned to be written this year. And so it was like January 3rd, I think, or 4th. It was like the first few days into the year when I was like, all right, let's do this. My publisher, who I haven't published with in several years, called me and she was like, look, I have this idea of, that I want to publish, and I think you would be great for it. You've got the right voice for it. And I was like, cool. And she's like, so, here's, all she said was Faeries in Vegas. And I was like, I'm sorry, what now? I've never read Faeries. So I haven't, like I said, I was a huge paranormal author, or reader. So it was like Vampires and the Shifters. And so Cressley Cole, Lara Adrian, Gina Showalter, Larissa Ione, like all of those guys, I've got all their books, devoured them. But I never read Fae. So I have never read ACOTAR or the subsequent, books in that series. I've just never read any Fae books before. So I was like, want me to write fairies? Like, I'm not thinking the sexy fairies that I now know exist, right? I'm like, want me to write about fairies in Vegas? What? And she's like, hear me out. So we talked about it and I was like, okay, I could get on board with this. I can make fairies sexy, no problem. So she had one plot point and that she wanted me to fit within the book. And then I just built the world and the story around that. I came up with the 3 brothers, Caden, Tiernan, and Finian. And I wrote it. So what happened, like I said earlier, usually when a book goes to print, it's a year to a year and a half before it's in the stores. So my publisher, Entangled, crashed the title, which I had never heard before this, but what it essentially means is they pay a lot of money and get approval to essentially skip the line. So because they wanted this to be out this year. So I had to write the book very fast. And I am one of the slowest writers on the planet. Like I am excruciatingly slow in the first draft because I edit as I go, and I've tried all the classes and all the things. It's just not how my brain works. My brain must polish and perfect before I move on. I can spend up to a half hour on one sentence alone because I can see it in my mind. I can see the image of it, and I have to relay it to you as closely as possible because I want you to see what I'm seeing. Mm-hmm. Because I see everything as a movie in my head, and then I just try to put it on the page. So I wrote this book in 9 weeks, which was insane for me, like super insane fast for me. And then we spent we didn't have much time for edits. So we only had like a week to edit the whole thing, doing 3 rounds of edits. It was chaotic. It was crazy. I had a couple of nervous breakdowns. I'm fine. It's okay. It was, but it was so worth it. I'm really proud of the book, and I love the world that I created, and I'm excited to continue writing in it and exploring the other two brothers in the series.
Yeah, I mean, like the idea of Faye in Vegas, it makes perfect sense after you read this book.
Right?
Like, it just meshes so well because you're like, well, of course, if they're like hundreds of years old, like why not be in Vegas and build your wealth?
Right.
And so you got a hot billionaire that I'm bound to for life.
Right.
I want him now. You get that on Amazon?
The Dark Court especially, right? Dark Court, I mean, you think about Vegas and everything happens at night, or if it doesn't, there's, they don't put clocks in the casinos. There's no windows. They don't want you to know what time of day it is. It's completely, it's perpetually night for all you know. And so it just makes sense. And that's where everyone goes to, like, what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. And he even says, Caden says in the book, he's like, that was the most genius marketing, slogan we ever came up with, because people come here literally to break their own rules. And that's what we encourage the deviance and the debauchery and all that stuff. So yeah, it's great.
Yeah. And I especially love what you did with Bryn's character, of how funny she actually is in the book, like, and how much you called out romance readers in this book. Like, I was like, excuse me, like, why is she me? Why does she have my sense of humor? Why am I laughing out loud? I think I was like sitting there laughing, and my friend looked at me and she's like, what are you laughing about? I'm like, you'll read it. It's okay. You'll see when you read. And so how did you make her, like, what did you base her off of? Because I'm like, she's hilarious. And she's like every romance reader's like ideal version of themselves.
Well, I am from Wisconsin, so I basically kind of wrote myself into it a lot. Where I'm from a small rural town in southeast Wisconsin. Madison is considered our big city. That's where, she had moved to go to school and stuff. And the whole thing about like, so my daughter, who is 22, read the book, and she's like, and she was highlighting all the parts about, Bryn being from Wisconsin, her Midwesternness and stuff. She's like, oh my God, Mom, this is so you. Oh my God, Mom. And it was so funny because like she shows up on travel day, to the lobby in her Drink Wisconsinly shirt, and we do a lot of apologizing here. So we apologize to people for doing their job. So like when she's in the bar and she's like, I'm sorry, can you please get me another drink? Kane's like, why are you apologizing for making him do his job? Because that's just what we do. We apologize all the time. Oh, sorry. Oops. Oops, sorry. It's just what we do. And I bartended in one of our small town bars for 5 years. And everyone lays their money in a big pile on the bar, and then they just go do their thing. And I don't know if it's like that everywhere in small towns, but that's what they do here. And they just pile their money up. And then when they order a drink, I would take the money from that pile and then, put it into the cash register. And then they will either slide me whatever they want for the tip onto the inside rail, or they'll wait until the very end and they'll just tip me on all on everything. But like, that's, so when she does that in the Vegas bar, she's got all of her money there, and he's like, are you wanting someone to steal this from you? And she's like, oh, no one else is doing that. Okay.
That part of that, I was like, I have never heard of this. And I've lived in like Kansas. I live in Nebraska. Like, I was like, she's going to get robbed. Like, that was my first, like, I was like, honey, this is Vegas. Like, you can't trust people here. This is a small town.
Yeah, it was a country mouse in the big city for sure. But yeah, I think that was what surprises everyone the most, is how much they laugh in this book. not a funny book. It's not a comedy by any stretch of the imagination. But in all of my books, I've just got these little one-liners that will kind of come out of nowhere sometimes and take you by surprise.
I think it was when she was it when she was standing in line waiting to go up to get her like room, and she says something about being I have to find it. I posted it on Instagram because I like felt so. It was when she asked for a Kindle. Was it this? No.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. She asked for like a Kindle, and she's like, "That's my one request, like Kindle and unlimited amount of money." And I was like,
Yeah, she was bargaining with him, and she asked for a Kindle because his library was too small. And there's another part where after she gets kidnapped, and she's like, somewhere there's a romance reader out there swooning because I've just been kidnapped by 3 seconds.
I literally am going to read the quote. It's, I'm officially trapped. The prisoner of 3 extremely wealthy and unbelievably sexy brothers. Somewhere there's a romance reader swooning at the idea, but I'm no romance heroine. I have no idea what the hell is going on. And I'm just like, I feel called out. I felt called out, and I was laughing. I had to like stop reading. I was like, I need to post this on my story. The amount of people who like swiped up and were like, what book is this? What book is this? What book is this? And I'm like, you gotta wait. You gotta wait. But here's the release date. Here's the release date. Because I was like, this book was so funny. And I was like, it's not like how you said, it's not a comedy, but her character is just inherently like funny. And I think it has to do with like the Midwest and like, I guess I kind of technically live in the Midwest. Nebraska isn't really Midwest, but it's just, I'm in the in-between. So I get a lot of people from like Minnesota and Wisconsin on campus. And I'm like, I know people like this. I know people like this.
Funny story about that particular line. My editor actually called me out. She's like, Gina, I don't think you should have this line. No woman wants to be kidnapped. That's terrible. That's like derogatory towards romance readers. And I was like, like literally there's a whole ass genre of women who want to be kidnapped. So
I think it's like a trend on TikTok to talk about like with your therapist, like the video I did of getting kidnapped and like telling your therapist like romance stories of where she gets kidnapped and your therapist looking at you like, what the hell is wrong with you? Like, I think there's so many videos like that. And I think you told me that when I like posted it on my story, and I was like, this woman is in the publishing industry and she doesn't know that what we want from us, we want to be kidnapped. I want to be taken against my will, but also like I'll voluntary, like as tribute, I'll go up and like, you want to put some like shackles on me and I'll like walk around next to you all day. Like, I'll do it. I mean, she bargained for that Kindle, and I was like, yes, girl. That's exactly like the thought process is I've had that before where I'm like, if I've been taken, all you have to do is give me books and I literally will go with you. Like, have you seen those like memes of like kids going into like trucks with candy? I'm like, I just need a post of one like of books in a truck and then like me just hopping in, because that would be me. Like, candy, no. Books, a $50 Barnes & Noble gift card.
Yeah, there was like a van. It was like a white kidnap van, but they had it lined with books, and it was like how to kidnap a book reader.
Yeah. I definitely felt like so connected to her character because I guess I kind of do have those influences of people from the Midwest here in my little college town. And so I was like, damn, when I move to the East Coast or West Coast, is this what it's going to be like? Because like I'm moving to Los Angeles. If I don't find me a hot, tall billionaire, I'm moving. I'm going to Vegas. So yeah. So how did you come up with the like, I know the trio of brothers, like kind of storyline of 3 brothers, 3 books kind of thing is widely popular in the romance genre. So how did you come up with each of these brothers and their personality? Because Caden is kind of that like broody, but not really broody. He's broody, but not to the extreme. And then Tiernan is like, I don't know how I would describe him because I haven't gotten much of him, but I'm so excited for his book. I'm like, I need it now.
So what I did was, yeah, you're right. Caden's broody, but not really. He's just more serious. Like he's got the weight of two empires on his shoulders, right? So
he's the eldest brother. It's the eldest brother vibe.
exactly. So he's, he just doesn't have time to be goofy and play around like the other two brothers. Tiernan is the middle child. He's only 5 years younger than Caden, at the ripe young age of 164, I think it is, the first book. And he's the playboy. He's the good time Charlie. He's the, he loves everybody. He's super affectionate, super charming. He's the one that comes with Caden to the business meetings so that he can charm the business people, because Caden just wants to get to the contract. He just wants to get to the deals and things like that, because they're also real estate moguls. But there's even a part in the Dark King where they have to go to this business meeting, and he's like, to me, this is pointless. Why don't we just talk specifics? But this is what they do, in the big leagues of real estate. You schmooze each other and it's just a bunch of bullshit, but this is just what you do. And usually I bring Tiernan along and he does all the talk and this charming and all that stuff. And then I just get to, deal with the business part. Finian is a very complex character. He is much younger. He's about 50 years younger than his brothers. So in the Dark King, he's 116. And so the two older ones have always looked at him as, their baby brother. They've helped raise him. They've helped, teach him the fighting and the, responsibilities and all these other things, that big brothers do. But he is a complex soul. First of all, he's the biggest of all three of them. So he's like 6'7", and I never really say what his weight is, that because the brothers are always just like, and God's only knows how much he is on the scale, because he's just a big dude. He works out, he lifts, and he trains with the Night Watch, which is the security for the royal line. And so he's trained in all sorts of different fighting things, but he is the only brother who feels the loss of their homeland, even though none of the three have ever been to it or seen it, because they are exiled. They've been exiled for 400 years. So long before they were even born. Finian feels this loss for where they come from. And he sometimes struggles with that. He's also the most sensitive of the three. He's just a big, lovable teddy bear, but he's also, capable of burning the world down if, and leading an army if he needs to. So I think I'm going to really enjoy writing his book, which won't be for a few months yet. But I just needed, whenever you've got three brothers, I have two sisters, so there's, three of us girls, and we're all very different. So I think, you just have to find those differences and what makes them each unique, so you're not reading the same hero over and over.
Yeah, I'm not going to spoil it for people who haven't read this book yet, but like the ending, the last like 5 chapters, I was like, what? I knew that. I was like, so this is what's going to happen in the second book? Like, I have to wait? I was like, fuck, why did I get the arc? Because now I have to fucking wait for so long to get to the next story. And I'm like,
is the most diabolical thing I've ever written. I will admit that.
I was kind of mad too. I was kind of like, this is bullshit. Like, I did not read this whole book to be like left on like a cliffhanger. And like, I'm like, I was like, what? You did this? I felt kind of personally attacked. I kind of have beef with you now. Is that like, you left me hanging like that? If you need like advanced, if you need some like beta readers, like let me know. I know it's different for traditional publishing, but if you want to like slip me a copy real quick, like under the table, I won't tell a soul.
Well, I've only got the first 2 chapters written, so.
I'll take what I can get.
Yeah.
You need advice on ramping up that spice? I can give you a bunch of seeds.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. I'm really gonna have to try and up my game in that area. I probably have a limit because it's traditionally published. So
yeah, that's one thing that like I do love indie publishing is because there's not really a limit on what you can write in spicy. And that's why, and it's like, because you only answer to yourself, and also Amazon, because Amazon likes to take down books sometimes, which is ridiculous. Because they literally have like the worst people publishing books on there and selling millions of copies, and then a girl getting on with a monster is crossing the line, apparently.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, their principles are a little skewed.
Yeah. But I am excited for the next book because I'm just like, I finally got into like your reading and your writing style, and I'm like, this is me. This is the vibe I want. I want easy reading that like I can gobble up. I can sit in one sitting, and like, I mean, I don't have the time to sit in one sitting, so it's been split up into multiple sittings. But I will say I have enjoyed your writing and I love it. And I'm just like so mad at you though, that you take forever to write. But also I realize that you're a human being. And like, I think a lot of readers forget that like, yeah, we do want the next book out now, but like, you got a life. You have a daughter who, when I first met you, like in person at a Polycon, I thought that was like your assistant. Cause I was like, you look too young to have a daughter. You're like, this is my daughter. And I was like,
Yeah, she's
what? She's amazing. She sends me TikToks and stuff, and I love it. And I'm just like, oh, she's great. And that leads me to my next question is, how did your daughter get into romance? And then she was like, Mom, I'm going to read your books. And were you like, holy, like, fuck, like my daughter is going to read like these naughty things I write? Or kind of like, what was that like initial process like going through when she started reading you?
So when my kids, I have a son too, who's 21 now. And so when they were little, neither of them were readers. And I was like, I want my kids to be readers. So I told them, I said, look, I'm going to make you a deal. If you ever want a book, I will buy it for you. Sight unseen, like I'm obviously going to approve it, but I will buy you books every day out of the year if you want. Like there doesn't have to be a special holiday, it doesn't have to be your birthday. Like I will always buy you books. Alyssa took me up on that, and she started finding books that she liked. Austin, he's still not a reader to this day, but he has read like the Percy Jackson series and Harry Potter and stuff, but he's really big into fantasy, but like he tricks himself into thinking that he hates reading. So like when he's reading, he enjoys it. Anyway, neither here nor there. So he's still doesn't read. Alyssa at 22 is still being like, Mom, I want this book. Like, Karen, put it on the Kindle.
I mean, you gotta put a time limit on that. You gotta be like, get a husband, and then or get a partner, and just
I should not do that. So yeah, I'm still paying. But so when she started reading romance, actually how she decided she was interested in reading was I gave her like YA romances, like middle, like the really young YA romances where it's just super sweet or whatever. And she was like, oh, I love reading. I was like, right? Because I'm a huge romance snob. I don't read outside the genre.
Same.
I'm just
mm-hmm.
So she started reading more and more. And then when she was probably, gosh, I'm trying to think how old she was, 15, 16, she started reading my books, and I was okay with it. Like, I've just always been very, very open with my kids about sex and just all of that stuff. Like, I've never made it a taboo subject. Austin was like, your books, you write about you and Dad, that's just disgusting. I'm like, no, son, no, that's why it's called fiction. And
yeah,
like I promise you that it's not new. But so Alyssa never made that correlation. And I even have books with both of my kids' names in them. I made them characters. And some people have a hard time reading characters that are like even their nephew's name or whatever. And I don't make the correlation. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Not my kid. I'm not writing about my kid having sex. That's ridiculous. I just use their name, and I might put some of their personality traits in there or whatever, but it's a completely separate character. So yeah, I never had a problem with Alyssa reading my books. She was what I felt was an appropriate age.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so she was able to, and then that's why she was able to, like, she did such a good job at a Polycon of pushing my books, because I am terrible about it. I'm just like, hi, this is, I've got some here, and she's like, oh my God, let me tell you. First time she's ever like assisted me in that kind of way, and she killed it. Like, I would have been so lost without her.
She did. I think she was the one who sold me on Lost and Found and Lost in Darkness. And she was like, she like looked at me, she's like, do you like Peter Pan retellings? And I was like, yes. And she's like, here you go. And I was like, thank you. And she's just amazing. Like, she's so sweet. And she, like, after I left your table, she like ran over to me. She's like, what's your at? I want to like follow you and I want to like talk with you and stuff. And I was like, I made a friend. I was so excited.
I didn't even do that. That's so cool.
Yeah. And the fact that I literally thought she was like, I thought maybe she was like 18. She looks so young and beautiful. And I was like, oh my gosh, what's your beauty routine? Like, to give me your skincare routine.
She has a routine, girl. Like, she told me the other day, it's like a 12-step process. I was like,
never mind. I'm gonna stick to my CeraVe and then moisturizing once a day. It seems to be working good for me.
Those makeup wipes that I take my makeup off.
I'm gonna be completely honest, this makeup is from yesterday because I slept in it because I was just too lazy to take it out.
I did like 2 days ago. I was like, look, I still look good.
I was like, my eyebrows look perfect. This waterproof mascara is still on. The highlighter, I don't need that for just working from home and then going to class. Like, I'm fine. I'm good. And then when I realized I had the podcast today, I usually do like a full face of makeup just because like I like to like do my makeup before the podcast and kind of do my routine. And then I was like driving my car. I was like, fuck, I can't do my makeup. So my whole
like 5 minutes. I was like, oh my God, I'm running late.
Yeah, no, my makeup is like, makeup and my hair are kind of like the thing I like to focus on. Everything else, I'm like, I'll wear the same leggings and t-shirts every single week. Like, I will rotate like the same 5 pairs of leggings and the 5 t-shirts. Like, I don't care about clothes. Like, my dad has to like tell me like, Maggie, you can't wear that shirt anymore. It has holes in it. And I'm like, but the holes aren't big enough yet. And I think that's just
this on. I don't even know how long it's been in my closet, but like, I'm wearing pajama leggings.
I'm wearing the same leggings for like the last 3 days because it's like leggings, but like they look professional enough that when like I do go into work and I wear like a nicer blousey top, it looks like business casual. And I'm in my Birkenstocks and like I pass the vibe. Like, I just go to my desk and like, that's just how I am. I've been wearing this sweatshirt for the last 5 days. Like, I don't want to talk about it. At least I change like everything else underneath, but I just
same thing. I am just so happy that I've
just body spray and then lint roller to take away the cat hair. And then I am perfect. Like, I don't have to worry. Which reminds me, your cats. I befriended you on Facebook because I was like, I love this woman. I have to be her friend. And then I saw that your cat had kittens and I was like,
they're so fucking cute. They're
they're
like
so cute.
They're 9 weeks old now. And they are like my 24/7 dopamine. I just absolutely love them.
Yeah, because I literally got a cat right after a Polycon. I adopted him because I met him before Polycon and then I like officially adopted him the week after. Mm-hmm. And I saw your cat and I was like, that reminds me of my cat. And I looked at him and I was like, you're not having children.
Right. So I got Phantom, the mom, a month before a Polycon. So I'm getting divorced this year and after my husband moved out, he never wanted me to have more than one cat. And I was like, I'm going to get another cat now, right? Because I can do what I want to do. And so I got another cat and she was 7 months old and she was this sweet little thing. And I have another cat, Elliot, but he's gigantic and he's awesome, but he's not a cuddler. And like, I miss having a cat to snuggle, like cuddle with me. So I got Phantom and she's so sweet, and she is going to be a cuddler. And I take her to her first vet appointment, and I had gotten her from this farm where like they had dozens of cats, and like they'd never been to a vet, and I was just like, it was a bad situation. So I rescued her from there, and I took her to her first vet appointment, and they're like, she's a month pregnant. And I was like, I'm sorry, what? I have never had a pregnant animal before. I was like, this is going to be fun. And at a polycon, she gave birth. When I was at a polycon, she was giving birth. My sister had just come to check on the kittens, and she looked in. This is my office here, and this is where I kept Phantom, like, so that she was closed off from the other animals. And my sister like looked in through the window, because this is like all windows, and she saw one little kitten, one little black and white kitten on the floor. She's like, oh my God, she's having babies. So I was having dinner with Alyssa and my bestie, Rebecca Yaros, and her assistant, Cassie. And I get this FaceTime from my sister, and she's like, Phantom's having a baby. So I was like, I was hoping she would hold off until I got home. I was like, one more day, Phantom. So I got to watch her have the babies over FaceTime. But yeah, so they're 9 weeks now. So she had 3 kittens. So now I've got five cats.
You really got buy one, get 2 free, or buy one, get 3 free.
Yeah, it was like a package deal that I didn't know I was getting. So,
I mean, it was a sign from the universe. They were like, the man's going out. You need 4 more cats.
Replacing him with 5 cats was honestly the best decision ever.
I became like a cat mom, and I'm like the crazy like cat mom where like I buy him toys, I get him like his specific, like the only type of kibble or not kibble, but cat food he eats. I have to go like 30 minutes to get this cat food, and then I have to like PetSmart is the only one that sells his like specific like wet food that he likes, and I'm like, dude, the amount of gas I spend just to get to your food and bring it back to you. And then he owns my apartment and acts like he runs the place.
Yeah.
But then he cuddles me, which is fine. That's what I like, is that he likes to cuddle. He's a big cuddler, like crazy cuddler. And I love that.
Yep.
But yeah, his cats are like, I became more of a cat person since like growing up. I like realized like I always loved dogs as a kid, and I always wanted a dog. And then I was like, as I got older, I was like, I don't want to pick up dog poop, and I don't want to have to train you. I adopted him. He was potty trained. He had food that he liked. He knew where to go. He knew where to scratch and where not to scratch. And I was like, you're coming home with me. Like,
I love dogs, but I don't love owning.
That's what it
I
is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I would not be without a cat.
They are very self-sufficient, I would say, in that I just got to clean his litter box once a day and give him wet food, and he could care less about me.
That's right. He does his own thing until he wants your love, and then you're like, oh, hi.
Yeah, it's like, I want you to love me right now, and I'm like, I'm working, like I can't do it. And he's like, he looks at me and he like sits on my like keyboard, and he looks at me, he's like, and he does like the thing where he like looks like this at me, and I'm like, you came at the wrong time. This isn't like a bus station. You can't just come and go as you please. Like,
Ollie had it with me when I was King, because I was literally in my office from the time I woke up until the time I went to bed. In those 9 weeks, I sat in my living room for a total of 30 minutes one time. I legit was from my bedroom to my office, and he had it by like week 7. He was on like laying across my arms here as I'm trying to type. I'm like, yes, I know. And I would just keep typing, but he would be like laying across me, like, if you're not going to come out there, I'm coming in here.
Yeah, it's always at like the most inconvenient time for you that they decide that they want you. And then when you're like, come cuddle with me, they're like, ew, why do I want to be around you? Like, you're gross. And I'm like, I adopted you. I saved you. I feed you. I give you the amount of shit I buy this cat. The amount of shit I have bought him is ridiculous. The amount of like toys that are just like down the hall of my apartment, and I wake up in the morning and I like feel something under my foot, and I'm like, another cat toy. And then I take a step and I'm like, another fucking cat toy. And I'm like, Like, what are you doing at night when I'm sleeping? Like, what kind of adventures are you having? Because he's like, I like to see he's more of a like, he's a cross between a dog and a cat because he likes to play fetch. Yeah. And so I like throw like all of his toys down like my long hall in my apartment, and he likes like run after them and then not ever bring them back, but he comes back to me so I can throw another one. So he makes me get up and go grab one and then keep throwing them. So he's really, cats are like, I could talk about my cat all day, every day. Yeah, they're like my heart and my soul. And the fact that I'm an Aquarius, I feel like it matches being such a cat person. I'm like, Aquarius women are cat people. I just know that. Yeah. We're just cat people. The vibe that we have, we love cats.
Yeah.
They're so cute. I actually don't know where he is. He likes to hide under the bed when like ever I'm at my desk and then come out at the most inconvenient times. Usually he sits right here. I have a separate chair for him. So in the podcast, he usually sits right here. And sometimes he comes and sits up on the table and likes to rub on my microphone and then mess up my audio.
Yeah.
But today he's actually
locked out right now. So they're all probably on the other side of that door going.
Or like putting their paws under the door and like trying to like open it. I've had that done so many times. Or like where I'm going to the bathroom and like the like door or the like under the door is a little bit taller and I could just see his eye and I'm like like crossing my legs like, what are you doing here? Like this is my privacy. I don't do that when you're going in your litter box. Like why you? And so I had to start leaving the door open because he'll like meow and like not leave me alone if I'm going to the bathroom. So I just sit there and he like looks at me and I'm just like, this is the most uncomfortable thing.
Elliot tries to get into my pants when I'm on the toilet. He like jumps into my pants. I actually have a video a couple of years ago where I had wear like what we were talking about is I had these super cozy pajama pants that I wore all the time until they had kind of like a little bit of a hole in the thigh area. And he jumped into my pants while I was going to the bathroom. And then I was like, okay, now I've got to try and like, and they were super loose and flowy. So I was like, okay, I'm done now. And I'm trying to pull my pants up and he is like stuck inside, hoping he's just going to go out through one of the pant legs. No, he births himself through a hole in the crotch. And I was at a video. I was like, what are you doing? He's like, just came out. I was like, I just gave birth to this cat.
Swear cats are like the weirdest personalities I have ever met. Like dogs are weird. Cats are like the weirdest people. The shit that they do, like I'm like, why? Like I had my water bottle open and like it's like this like so it has like this and I had it sitting on my desk just like this and he's looking at it and then he just goes whack and it like falls down all my ice spills and I'm like, I was like, what was that for? Like, why? Literally, cats are just, they're the craziest creatures. And they are like, I love them. I love cats. And I can shit on them because I love them. Like people who hate cats, you cannot shit on cats because you don't have to deal with them. I have to deal with it. Except all I have to do is clean the litter box. And he grooms himself. He doesn't smell. And it's perfect. A dog would rip up my carpet, destroy my shoes. The only thing my cat destroys is his toys.
Yes.
And and like his cat tree, I don't know if you can see it, but it has the like carpet is like coming off because he goes into like the zoomies mode at like 9 p.m. where he thinks everything is trying to attack him. So he like runs up and jumps up onto my bed and then attacks the cat tree and then runs back out. And I'm like, I'm literally laying in bed, like with my phone, like at my face. And I'm like, oh. Like, what are you doing? And then he attacks my feet. And I'm like, I can see that one. Like my feet are moving. You don't know what it is. But the cat tree, what did it do to you? So it's actually kind of really sad right now. It's just so torn up. But I love my cat. I love
Yeah.
cats. And I think that's why I like brooding men. It's because they're kind of like cats. Like they want to be around you, but then they're also like, I want you, but also like I need my boundaries.
Right. I
Like-
have to pretend at least I don't want you.
Yeah. That's what I like about.
Mhm.
That's why I like tall, dark, handsome men. Is am I single? Yes.
Me too.
Besties twinning. More lifers. Oh my gosh, that's hilarious. That's really dark a little bit, but also really funny, and I support you. But I think this is a good place to end the episode. So thank you to all of our listeners who have been listening up until this moment. We've had crazy ride talking about spiciness, talking about Fae in Vegas, talking about dark brooding men and cats. And cats. I always will talk about my cats. I literally had a whole podcast episode basically ranting about my cat. I love cats. You should like cats too, listener. If you're a dog person, I accept you, but you should get a cat because cats are for lifers. But thank you to everybody who's listened. We will have all of Gina's links down in the description. And thank you to everybody who has supported our shop and buying the University of Smutsville stuff. I'm actually wearing the alumni shirt right now where it says University of Smutsville alumni. So I'm also wearing our sorority tee, which I'm not going to pull up my sweatshirt because I'm too comfortable right now. But thank you everybody who has listened, who has supported us, and make sure you go check out Gina, and I will see you in next week's episode. Bye guys.
Bye.